All right, so we are starting a new unit today, Unit 6. If we look at our course outline, which we can always find from the home page of our course, and you have printed out, we're going to look at the timeline of this. So we just finished our first 2 assignments. This is the general assignment grading rubric. Remember, for assignments, you have to turn something in by the deadline, but as long as you turn in something that shows process towards the project, you will get 1 point instead of 0 points, and you'll be able to resubmit something by the end of the semester for higher points, right? So meeting the bare requirements, that gets you 2 points, but to get 3, it really needs to be a portfolio project, something where you've done the best you can to make it as engaging to the viewer as you can. Does that mean that every assignment you do needs to be fully engaging and be a portfolio piece? No. But we're aiming for 5 of them by the end of the semester. Out of 8 total portfolio assignments you do and 2 exercises, right? You're going to pick 5 of those that represent your work. And actually, there's this extra thing called proving grounds that we're going to start today, which also could make it into your portfolio in one of those 5. So today, we are working with the subtleties of the skills we've already learned. So we've been learning compositing, we've been learning how to blend other people's pixels. Now we get to reflect back on that. So proving ground number 1, which will be due next class, is not worth 3 points, it's worth 1.5 points, which is very specific. And each of those half points are based on a certain rubric criteria that we'll go into here. Proving grounds are called proving grounds because that's what's required of the badge certification for creative problem solving. Proving ground is a weird name, right? But it isn't an assignment, it isn't an exercise. It's kind of a conceptual reflection on creative problem solving and how digital art relates to that discipline. So you will have 4 proving grounds through the semester. This is the first. If you get full marks on all of those 4 proving grounds, you will earn your creative problem solving badge, even if you fail the class. It's like a separate certification, right? And you can track that under badges in the sidebar, but we haven't done anything for them yet. So Unit 6 introduces us to our first proving ground, and that's why this is a reflection on what we've done so far. And it requires more components than just doing the digital imaging. You also have to demonstrate what you understand about the digital imaging. So there's some writing components as well. Yeah, Rodrigo. So out of the 7 3-point assignments, those are the ones I grade, right? If you don't get 3s on any of them, then you lose 7 points out of 100 points for the semester, right? So if you got 2s on all of them instead of 3s, and you never improved any of them to get 3s, then your max potential in the class is a 93% instead of 100%. All other points being achieved, right? And there's extra credit opportunities. So it's not a huge hit between a 2 and a 3. But art isn't always about, can I get the most points? It's like, do I want to make this as good as I think I can make it, right? Because it represents us. So that's why you're encouraged to improve them throughout the semester. So yes, that's a good point though. Even though a 2 out of 3 is a terrible percentage, right? A 66% is not a grade anyone's happy with. Whereas a 3 out of 3 is 100%, and everyone likes to get 100. But really, it's just the difference of 1% in your overall grade for the class. So it's all relative. And I don't expect all of you to fully invest in every assignment we do to put in the time to make it a portfolio piece. You're going to vibe with some assignments more than others, right? And want to learn those skills. Now, this is even worth less. This is worth 1.5 points towards your full 100 points in the class, but this has that extra motivator of earning the creative problem solving badge, which is one of the least earned of the 21st century skills badge nationally. So it's a good skill to have. It's a good thing to put on your electronic resume, your LinkedIn, all of that, because it links to these really specific skills. And it's certified externally, just like a college degree is certified by an accrediting board. this is certified externally by badge credentialers, which is why I have to call it a proving ground and why we have to have this specific rubric for each one. So, what is it? We're going to learn what a creaturescape is. A creaturescape is basically, we're going to be compositing with our own pixels now, right? So we're going to be compositing with what we did for assignment 1 as a setting, and then putting our creature for assignment 2 into that setting. So even though both of those assignments, you weren't allowed to create your own pixels, you had to make them from other people's pixels, from what we discussed last class with question of the day 2, the idea is we have transformed them fully into our own projects, right? So now they are our pixels to sell, our pixels to represent as our own work. All good. Now we can use them as assets to make new work. And this is so common commercially. You make something, like you make a t-shirt design of a character, right? I did some t-shirt designs for Stunts Sportswear, right? And they have kind of a mascot that I helped them with, and like trying to remember, it's like almost like a teardrop thing that's riding a skateboard, right? But then they want to use that same image, but then they want to build more environment around it, right? Or they want to use that same logo, but they want it in a different color finish. So what we do as digital artists, we take advantage of digital's ability to make perfect copies of things, and then we can make endless variations on something we've already created, as long as that first thing is our own and high quality, right? So we're thinking about assets now, basic compositing assets of setting and figure. And we're going to be putting them together into what I call a creaturescape. To do this, there's a lot of objectives, right? We want to start demonstrating mastery of compositing. Not just understanding the basics, but mastering the basics. So what are the basics? Things like lighting direction. Things like atmosphere, edge control, all that kind of thing. Things you can't do with collage traditionally, but you can do with digital compositing. We want to use the layers appropriately and blend together different digital formats. We're going to be blending a JPEG with a PNG, or a PSD with a PNG in order to make a new PSD to output a JPEG, understanding why we need all three formats for this. And we want to become familiar with a new technique, which is called a non-destructive overlay layer, to allow us to take our assets and not change them, but to shape them with an overlay layer to match different settings, right? To add drop shadows, to add light direction, to add textures. So that's going to be one of the requirements. And then we're going to understand how to glaze and add atmosphere and texture overlays to improve overall engagement and believability. This is going to help both your creature design and your landscape design. This gets to the rubrics of the creative problem solving badge. We have to reflect on and make sense of the data of our files. So this is going to be understanding our resolution and what it could be used for, right? Connecting it to the end product, whether it's good enough for screen resolution or good enough for print resolution, and at what physical dimensions. We're going to recognize commonalities among seemingly unrelated situations by taking a landscape that you designed and then a creature you designed, and then figuring out how to make those in common, right? How to make the light source match, how to make the shadows match, how to make the posture and the posing of your creature match the setting you're putting it in. And then we're going to frame novel problems in familiar terms by answering this question with words, right? We could also do it with a one-on-one interview, but it's a lot more useful to the class if you just make a little blurb about it. So how does your creature interact with its environment? So this is the writing component of this. As you are blending it visually in, you also want to conceptualize and put down how this creature will survive in the environment you're putting it in, even if they're like the weirdest combination ever. Like, what is it breathing? What is it eating? What are its predators? All that kind of thing. And you're going to see how it will all make the work stronger. So to do this, we're going to look at past examples. There are always the YouTube tutorials from past semesters and the one I'll be working through with you this semester. And the only deliverable is this proving ground number 1. But there's a lot to it. So let's look at the examples first. This has 3 components. These are the 3 components. 1, 2, 3, right? They are each worth half a point. This is the one that is hands-on digital imaging. We take our creature from assignment 2, we put it into our fantasy landscape from assignment 1, and then we work to make the atmosphere believable, the lighting believable, the textures, the shadows, all of that, right? In a non-destructive way. The second component is a really, I would think pretty basic, but it's the one that most students fail at and have to remember to go back and fix before the end of the semester to earn the badge. Because with the proving grounds, you can't miss anything. You have to get all the rubrics, right? So what is the second one? The second one is you have to identify what your print resolution is. And you have to write it. Not as it's 3,024 pixels by 3,862 pixels. That's called a pixel dimension. And you can say that but not understand what it means. So instead you have to express it in an actual way that makes sense and connects it to your purpose. So this image is 18 inches by 12.5 inches, the final creature scape. Its resolution is 300 pixels per inch. So how do we define that resolution? And we have to write it. That is larger than 8 by 10 at least 300 pixels per inch. And that is what we call print resolution. So this is good enough for standard print resolution. If it's smaller than 8 by 10 by 300 pixels per inch, or larger than 8 by 10, but not at 300 pixels per inch yet, then it's only good for screen resolution. And then the third component is writing about how your creature survives in this environment. And that often goes along with creature design pitches. But it helps us understand all these creative concepts, and helps us make better decisions. So here's another example. Really different, right? This one's super colorful, kind of super psychedelic and out there. This one's very grounded, very dark, like a special effects movie. But it can still meet all the requirements, right? The creature's there. There's an attempt to make the lighting match. You see the cast shadow underneath, which helps us understand this is floating. You see that the light logic of the environment matches the light logic on the creature. And then it is identified. This is 12 inches by 9 inches, which is larger than 8 by 10, but it's only at 72 pixels per inch, right? And 72 pixels per inch is the standard screen resolution. And as long as you label it that way, you know how it can be used, you've met that requirement. And then they write about how it fits into this environment. Even though they're crazy, and they don't make a lot of sense, but then you write and it does make sense. This creature is a free-floating scavenger of the sulfurous gases rich in the atmosphere of its low-gravity environment. It shelters underneath the canopy of the giant mushroom forest and expels a phosphorescent vapor as a byproduct that contributes to the rainbow-colored skies. So another way of thinking about this is you have to become a good bullshitter, which is really important in creativity, and something that AI cannot do very well at all. Because AI can write something, but it's not going to make connections between the things that you see and recognize. And that's what that part of this proving ground is all about. Here are some other examples. Remember, it has to have all 3 components. The image where the creature is believably integrated into the environment, and the component of that is you can't hide the creature, right? So the creature needs to take up at least 25% of the overall creature scape. Does that make sense? It's not a Where's Waldo kind of project. Some students do that by making multiples of their creature and then having them cover a lot of it, but their creatures are all like small different examples, and that's fine too. Okay, you have to identify not just what the physical dimensions and resolution are, but also actually type in what is that purpose. Is it screen resolution or is it print resolution? And you have to understand the difference. All right, so let's get into it. You are going to use your